Down Granada helps solve some of life's mysteries, with archaeologists from Liverpool University seeking the resting place of King Arthur now in Schofield's quest.
Welcome, this is Quest. We are live in the London studios on the South Bank. Wherever you are, you may not know it, but you could be sitting on a secret, and together tonight we're going to try and find out what that may be. Here's how the whole thing works. We've got dozens of different questions to ask, over 100 operators waiting to take your call. So as soon as you think you know one of the answers that we may be asking for, call us. Here's the magic number. It's 0990 200 600, 0990 200 600. Together we can crack the riddles of the universe and tackle the impossible. We can do anything, so we better get on and do it. We certainly did it last week. Here's a major update, another magnificent response on Quest. Thanks to you. Pauline Lynn's house is going to get its facelift. Last week, Pauline told us how her home in Batley had been painted bright blue. It was her husband William's idea, and he's been in the doghouse ever since. We appealed on Pauline's behalf, and the phones wouldn't stop ringing. Now here's what's about to happen. Carol Moore of Wigan will repaint the house with some help from Matthew Atherton, who's also in that picture you can see. Pauline wants it white with dark blue woodwork, which is a lot more tasteful, and a gang who call themselves the Environment Concern for Batley will sort out the garden. Work starts this week. We'll show you pictures in a couple of weeks' time, and if you want your garden dug or your home painted, I'm terribly sorry, we can only do one at a time, so you're going to have to do it yourself. OK, it's time for a rundown of... so early on in the programme. Do you know, I have a feeling I know who this is going to be. Hello? Who's that? Hello? Oh, it's supposed to be Dale Winton. I'm being told that... Oh!
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I thought you'd gone for a moment.
I was thinking, well, Philip, how are you?
Now, listen, you were asking for cars last week on the programme.
Philip, I've got to tell you, we did amazingly well. We've got all three.
You got them all?
Got them all. I'm not looking at the cars yet, because you know how it is with these things. They can be quite valuable, so I think the word is deep in negotiation.
OK, so deep in negotiation, not with the man who was going to charge you £10,000.
No. We've got, I don't give away too many prizes, because all three cars come from three different callers, so I've got to sort of, like, not tell anybody how much I'm paying.
Of course, you don't want to push the price up, of course.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dale. I'm glad we were of help.
You're a darling.
All right, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm a darling. Now then, perhaps we can get on with this week, starting with the rundown of what's on the rest of Quest tonight. We find a sensational new opera talent. Why did tragedy strike this Cornish village? By George, we want to look alike with a ukulele. And we've also got more urban myths, unbelievable stories about unbelievable things happening to unbelievable people. But if it was you they happened to, then boy, do we want to find you. Plus, we have an exclusive clip from Princess Diana's Panorama interview, which we hope to squeeze in before the end of the programme. It's true, no need to laugh. First, at 8 o'clock on ITV, next Sunday, the Beatles anthology begins, so the entire nation will once again be gripped with Beatlemania. So we're going to dive in first, like we always do on Quest, with our own Fab 3 quests into the Fab 4. How fab? First, of course, here's some music.
Penny Lane.
What a start to the programme. Penny Lane, of course, but where is Penny Lane? Well, we know that it's in Liverpool, but where's that famous street sign? The original was nicked years ago, and so were all the replacements. Now, Sheila Johnston, the curator of the Beatles Story Museum in Liverpool, wants to find that very first sign, the one that hung above the shop on the corner of Penny Lane and Allerton Road. If it's under your bed or decorating your loo, here's that number again. It's 0990 200 600. We just want to borrow it. You can have it back afterwards. 0990 200 600. Penny Lane was, of course, the record, a Beatles classic. Here are some more Beatles classics, but performed by some less than classic artists.
ti, lo noté en su forma de mirar y solo piensa en ti, me lo digo sin tener que hablar.
The man who put those together for us and who has dozens more examples of the same sort of thing is collector Jim Phelan. Welcome to the programme, Jim.
Hello.
I never realised that there were so many examples of covers. What sort of numbers are we looking at here?
Well, if you take a song like Yellow Submarine, you're talking about at least 2,000 cover versions.
And you've got all of them?
Well, no, because the ones I'm interested in are the exotic ones, the bizarre ones. Anything that's off the wall is what I'm looking for.
Why did you get interested in the first place?
I love kitsch and I love the music of the Beatles, so it seemed obvious to me that if I collect them and collate them, I can put them out as compilations.
And what's your quest this evening?
Well, I've done 2 volumes of the exotic Beatles so far, and I'm looking for things for the 3rd volume. And anything that's in any exotic foreign language, you know, Chinese, Russian, Indian. I'm also looking specifically for Lord Sitar. He's done Eleanor Rigby, and there's an African version that I've heard of. It's Odeon's Juju with Fagbola and the Beatles, and I've got to get a copy of that from somebody.
OK, well, let's see what we can do. They sound to me like they're going to be a bit difficult to find, but if anyone can do it, then I'm sure our Quest viewers can. Thank you very much indeed for that. Right, to complete Jim's collection, we need to find these recordings. Lord Sitar singing I Am the Walrus, or Eleanor Rigby. Odeon's Juju with Fagbola and the Beatles, a Nigerian album. Any foreign language Beatles, especially Russian, Chinese or Indian. If you have it, he would love to hear from you. 0990 200 600. OK, now, the third in our top 3 Beatles quests. When the Beatles packed it all in the late 60s, they left many millions of broken hearts behind them, and even more millions of souvenirs, badges, programmes, pens, hats, and all that sort of stuff. Every home has something Beatle-ish, I'm sure. Many homes probably still do. Whatever it is, they could be worth a bit of money. Here with a quick rundown on Beatle and other pop and rock memorabilia is our memorabilia expert, Catherine. Welcome. Lovely to see you.
Hello.
OK, what do we have?
Did you ever, or do you remember using this? It's by Margot of Mayfair, and it's the Beatles talc, dating from about 1964.
So that would have been baby powder for me.
Absolutely, yes, indeed. But the fact is, it survived. Like many Beatles collectibles, so much was thrown away. I mean, there were Beatles napkins that were produced for children's parties, and so many of those were just disposed of. So if anybody out there has got any of those,
Beatles
great.
napkins.
Absolutely, great to see those.
This says Margot of Mayfair. That's not the fragrance, is it? That's
no,
just
that's
the maker.
About £80 for that.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. So serious disposable collectibles that, you know, have survived are worthwhile. On a more serious front, I mean, we're all familiar with autographs and how prized they are. That particular early still has all 4 Beatles autographs, and an example like that at Christie's recently fetched £900.
Good grief.
So don't drop it.
No, put it down here. I put it in my pocket, actually.
Oh, yes. And obviously there are millions of other pop collectibles, but on the same situation as in terms of this is a normal Evian bottle, but because it's got Madonna's very prized lipstick on the top, from her film In Bed with Madonna, and her signature, that bottle is worth about £200.
Good grief. And just quickly, let's do this one here. This is Morrissey here.
Yes, looking ahead to the future. I mean, look for all bands, but particularly things that are, you know, have lasted in his role as the Smiths, and then now as a solo artist. You know, his signature is highly collectible. That about £100.
Good heavens. Will you man our phones and see if we can get any of the things we're asking for? OK, thank you very much indeed. Call in 0990 200 600 if you've got a rock souvenir, and Catherine will be here to take your call. And remember that these memories can be worth money. If there's something you want to send us, then here's our address. It's Schofield's Quest, PO Box 9100, London W1A 9SD. If you want to contact us by electronic magic, our internet address is squest@delphi.com. And if you can't find a pen right now, then these addresses and everything else that you might ever want to know about tonight's show is on ITV, and that's teletext on page 109, and see if you've got those Beatles napkins. Do you remember a few weeks back we reported on the Cornish surfers and the appalling things that were coming in with the surfers on the crest of those Cornish waves? Hundreds of surfers rang in with their own horror stories. It would take all night to list what you've met face to face on the beaches of Britain, and we would all feel very ill by the end of it. But Chris Hines, who launched the quest, put all your information together and presented it this week to the European Commission in Brussels, and he's on the telephone right now to talk all about it. Hello there, Chris.
Hi there.
Hiya, nice to talk to you. What was the outcome of all this?
We had a very good 2.5-hour meeting with Mr. Papadopoulos from the Commission. He took our deposition very seriously.
That's good. And as far as the information was concerned, the stuff that we collated for you was of some use?
Oh, the information from Schofield's quest was brilliant. It upped our database considerably and managed to let us show that 68% of all the cases on our database were actually contracted from the so-called government-passed beaches. So this, when presented to the Commission, supports our call for tighter standards in the revision of the EC Bathing Water Directive. So a very good quest, and delivered to the people who can make the decisions to protect the health of the people using our coastline.
Let's hope they do. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Chris. Well done.
Thank you.
OK, marvellous stuff. It sounds like we really are getting somewhere here, and it's all due to you. On behalf of all of us who love the sea, if you responded to our quest, then thank you very much indeed. Now it's the time on the show when we feature those youngsters who have gone missing from home. We are talking directly to those young people, of course, but we're also talking to you because you may have seen them. And if you have, the parents and the families need to hear directly from you. With us, as usual, is Mary Asprey from the National Missing Persons Helpline. Welcome back again, Mary. Bit of luck last week?
Yes, it was good news. Charlene Shea is now in a place of safety, and we think we had a phone call from Curtis, who actually rang into the helpline after the programme. Curtis, if you're watching, please ring us again.
It's 0500 700 700, Curtis, and it's a free call, so you don't have to pay for the call, OK? So give us a call.
The first appeal tonight is for Bridget Ann Ray. Her date of birth is the 25th of the 4th, 1963. There is growing concern for Bridget, who was last seen or spoken to on October the 16th this year. We believe she may have gone walking, as she took her walking clothes and her rucksack. Please, if you're watching, phone the family or phone us.
Now, Bridget, some information here if you think you might have seen her. She's 5'9". She's slim with long brown hair and hazel eyes and lives in North London. She was last seen or spoken to on the 16th of October this year, and her family and friends are, of course, very concerned for her well-being.
And the second one is Kevin Hicks. His date of birth is the 9th of the 2nd, 1970. Kevin went missing on March the 2nd, 1986. He went to the corner shop to buy some eggs and hasn't been seen since. That was in the Addison area of Croydon. So please, if anybody has any information on Kevin, please will they ring us. A
description we have of Kevin is actually 10 years old. Remember, he went in 1986. He's tall for his age when he went missing, 5'10" to 5'11".
The last appeal is for Sammy Jamel Chamberlain. Her date of birth is the 25th of the 11th, 79. Sammy could be using the surname Begum. She actually went missing from Wolverhampton and on the 18th of August this year. And if anyone has seen Sammy or knows where she is or she's watching, please will she phone.
Sammy is slim. She's 5'4", of Asian appearance with shoulder-length, dark brown hair. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Thank you very much indeed, Mary. That helpline number again, all important, write it down. It's 0500 700 700, 0500 700 700. And remember, if you've left home, this isn't about being found or being taken home. It's just a way of letting people know that you're OK. That's the important thing. And of course, you can always cut out the middleman, do it the simple way and direct right straight through to your home phone. That's what they want to know. They want to know that you're OK. You know the number. Thank you very much indeed, Mary. Now that's it for part one. Still to come, we find the spot where they laid King Arthur to rest. But can you find the missing men of Port Quin? We have a piece of paper here, which looks like an update. It's always from last week, the Woolly Mammoth update. Last week, Andy Davis called with information about the missing mammoth jaw, which we, of course, were looking for in last week's programme. Unfortunately, we took the wrong number down. So, Andy, would you please give us a call if that's possible? It all looks quite good up here. All looks very busy. We'll talk to Catherine in a moment, see how she's getting on. Stay with us. We're back after the break.
New Toffee Viennetta. Smooth ice cream with crisp golden toffee layers. Toffee Viennetta. New from Walls.
Just help yourself to John Smith, who is done to say the word and it is yours.
There's something completely new in the pub. John Smith's Extra Smooth Bitter. Pure silk in a glass. So, we still don't need gimmicks.
Do you believe in Santa Claus? There really has to be something you want for Christmas.
A house, a brother, and a dad. That's all I ever want. If you're really Santa Claus, you can get it for me. I know it.
Go on in to Woolies Winter Wonderland.
Treat yourself to a Radiant Beam mineral bath and let the soothing effects of the warm water turn your aches into an ah.
Princess Diana gives her amazingly frank interview on television tomorrow night. Tomorrow morning, you can read extracts from the transcript only in The Sun. Only Diana really knows the pain behind the fairy tale marriage. Only Diana knows about her relationships with men like Oliver Hall, the dashing art dealer, and England hero Will Carling. Read about her feelings towards Camilla, the hope she has for the young princes, and her emotions towards her first love, Prince Charles. Read Diana, the TV interview, only in tomorrow's Sun.
He loves new Spiller's Perfect. So do you, don't you?
Spiller's Perfect. Remember, it's just for cats.
Welcome back. Catherine Higgins is on the other side of the studio taking your memorabilia calls. How's it going? It's interesting stuff?
Do you have any Beatles stockings? Because Violet Stevens actually does, and they're worth about £30.
Oh, well done, Violet.
Quite
you going to continue to man, then?
Absolutely.
Still no sign of those serviettes?
No napkins have come in at all, but any Beatles paper napkins, I'd long to hear about them.
OK. Right, here's a big one, a major result for Quest. 2 weeks ago, we set out to find an operatic tenor, someone good enough to head up the Windsor and Eton Operatic Society's production of Don Carlos. Your response was amazing even for Quest. More than 100 wannabe opera stars called in. They were whittled down to 4. Auditions took place last week, and we were there to watch and listen.
Astonished at the response that Schofield's Quest produced. These tenor parts are really hard to sing, and when you think that in the professional opera house that really some people think there are only 3 tenors in the world that can sing these big Verdi parts, it's not surprising it's difficult to get somebody to come and do it for an amateur company. I'm still astonished that we got 64 applicants.
We had no response at all, really, from local tenors. I think the role is so difficult to sing that we were left with a real problem.
Well, I suppose we really ought to think about having somebody in.
Time, I think, to hear candidate number 1.
Yes.
It is an ambitious role. I mean, I'm a relatively young singer, but you have to put your neck on the line and try these things. Io vivo in ciel dell'one verso in memore come già dal cespite d'una passita fiore a te con meno corro amori
We're looking for somebody in this part who can sing it, that's essential of course, but who also can put across what's a very dramatic story with their voice, with their acting, and that really is quite hard.
If I was offered the part, I'd be very pleased. It's quite an undertaking. I'd also be a bit cheesed off about having to learn another set of words. I mean, none of us like memorising.
Oh, if I was offered the part, great, yeah. Yeah,
I've got some dates to figure out. The dates might be a little bit awkward, but it'd be a great role to do.
It really has been a success, thanks to Schofield's Quest. We've really been able to do what we wanted, and we've cast, we think, 2 absolutely superb tenors.
That's what I like to hear. So at that stage, we had a short list of 4. The suspense was killing us all, but I can now announce the winner. Or rather, the 2 winners, because the role is so demanding, they needed 2 Don Carloses or Don Carli, taking it in turns, 1 night on and 1 night off. And the talented 2, and they're both Quest viewers, are Glenn Lorimer of Ware in Hertfordshire and Russell Hibbert of Stanhope Gardens, London. Congratulations to both of you. I say you were Quest viewers, but in fact, you didn't watch that programme, did you?
No.
So how did you hear about it?
Well, I heard about it from singer friends who I had just finished doing a production of Madame Butterfly with. They saw the show, and they contacted me and said that I should get in touch.
Same with you.
Yeah, I found a friend up in Manchester I'd met when I was doing Phantom up there, and here I am.
And did you think you were going to get it? Were you confident?
You never go into audition thinking you're not going to get it, otherwise you just don't bother auditioning.
Right.
You always go in there thinking, yes, I can do it.
It's possible for you to do it, yeah.
And are you nervous?
Were we nervous?
No.
Not overly nervous, no.
Not nervous on the opening night, do you think, coming up? It's not that long?
A little.
Yes. On the opening night, yes.
A few butterflies.
Yes.
I'm glad we found you. It's a terrific story, and I'm looking forward to our opening night tickets, if that's all right. I'll have 4 if that's possible. Thanks, gents. The very best of luck. Great. I hope you have a great time. The opera begins its 6-night run on March the 25th at the Farrar Theatre, Eton College, Windsor. So you never know. There might be a royalty there, of course.
Yes, and
royalty going to that school in Eton.
And people can ring and book in.
I'm sure they can. Bless him. Got that in. Well done. Now then, Glenn and Russell, of course, after that, who knows? On stage at the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden, or maybe outside busking. We will, of course, keep you posted. OK. On Quest now, it is time for an update. Last week, we set one of our more ambitious quests, the quest for geese a-laying and maids a-milking and all those other things are doing things. They were all needed to join the Prince's Trust float in London's Christmas parade on November the 26th. Well, questers have certainly been a-questing, and here's Emma Forbes, ambassador for the Prince's Trust, to tell us what's happened so far. First time you've been an ambassador, I would have thought.
It is. It's a very impressive title, isn't it?
Yeah, it is incredible. And
you call me that.
Ambassador, you were involved last year in the float itself. What did you do? What were you doing?
Well, I was just appearing as part of the parade, one of the many people involved. It's on November the 26th, and it's absolutely brilliant. It goes all around the West End of London. It's an incredible parade, great start to Christmas. It's very exciting. It's very, very Christmassy. They have a Grand Marshal. Last year it was Sir Richard Attenborough. This year it's Lois Lane, big favourite of Terry Hatcher, Grand Marshal. And there's floats, and last year 900,000 people turned out. This year they're hoping for 1 million. And they raise about £25,000 on the day.
Now, I never obviously like to admit defeat when it comes to a quest. We've done very well, but we have dropped a little bit short on 2 of our...
Only 2, but we did do brilliantly. Things like very wacky ideas. Things like 10 lords are leaping. The Earl of Stockton has got 10 real live lords who are going to leap along on the parade.
He's a regular viewer, the Earl of Stockton. He's always there.
No, it was brilliant. There's just 6 geese are laying, and 2 turtle doves are still missing.
Right.
Yes.
OK. And as far as people know of the Prince's Trust, of course, but what does it benefit? Where does the money go?
Well, basically, it's a very, very good idea because it goes for young people between the ages of sort of 14 to 25, people who need a really good start in life. They do lots of development courses, lots of workshops, they give grants to give young people a really good start in life, so it benefits that. It's a very good cause.
Thank you very much indeed for the moment. So you're going to man our phones and see whether we can get the 2 that are missing.
I am
So just recap on what we're missing again.
We're missing 6 geese a-laying and 2 turtle doves.
OK, you get on those telephones. Now, we thought that one problem might be finding 3 French hens, but it wasn't, was it?
Not a problem at all, actually.
No. Very easy, in fact. They're on the other side of the studio. If you're ready, girls, 3, 2, 1, and go! I'd never walk again.
You don't want to try that
Dear
at
me.
home.
Thank you very much, girls. Thanks, Emma. Our three French hens there were Sally Richards, Louise Foster and Sarah Bransgrove, all from the Solar Systems Dance Group in Ruislip. Thank you very much indeed. Magnificent. But the quest goes on. 0990 200 600. We still need 6 geese laying and a pair of turtle dogs. Now, you've got to come on here. The turtle doves are quite simple. Billing and cooing. Just have a think about it. There must be a loving couple who would do perfectly. Just use your initiative here. It doesn't have to be literal. Now, another story from the beaches of Cornwall, but this has nothing to do with pollution. Instead, Angela Rippon has a strange and haunting tale to tell us.
This is a good old Cornish mystery that's baffled the locals for several generations. Behind me is the charming but rather sleepy village of Port Quin. Now, at one time, this was a thriving fishing community with quite a healthy sideline of smuggling. But now, well, it's virtually deserted. Now, local legend has it that one night, though no one actually knows quite when, just about all the men in the village disappeared. Now, because they were fishermen, a lot of people assumed this meant that they just drowned at a particularly vicious storm at sea. But another bit of local gossip suggests that they actually ran away to escape the excisemen. Whatever the truth, the women were left behind to grieve without ever really knowing what had happened to their men.
Inspired by these different stories, in 1888, one of the Newlyn School of painters, Frank Bramley, created this portrait showing a mother and young wife at dawn, finally giving up all hope that the fishermen will return after a stormy night at sea.
With the men gone, the women could never support themselves in this tiny enclosed community, so it wasn't long before they took off as well, to be swallowed up by the larger neighbouring towns and villages where they could find work, leaving Port Quin to become virtually a ghost town. Although it's all completely overgrown, if you know where to look, you can actually still find traces of the old Port Quin. This is what's left of a row of cottages where it's believed the fishermen used to live, but as you can see, it's now totally derelict.
So how can the men of an entire village just disappear overnight? Well, smuggling could provide the answer. The Bay of Port Quin is riddled with caves, and there are stories of secret passages leading to the cliff tops. These were used to convey contraband to the village above, so perhaps this wasn't a disappearance, but a flight from the forces of the law.
One widely held belief is that the fishermen all drowned during a storm. This whole Cornish coastline is notoriously treacherous, and over the years has claimed hundreds of lives.
Liz, what do you make of the theory that the men all perished at sea?
I think that almost certainly there was a great storm, otherwise the legend or myth or story would never have started. But I don't think it can possibly have happened in the 18th century, because in the churchyard here, where the men would have been buried, we have 40 memorials from the 18th century, and none of them speak of any men from Port Quin.
So what do you think actually happened?
I think that undoubtedly there was a terrible tragedy in which a lot of the men were lost, and after that the place acquired a really unlucky reputation, and maybe people didn't fish out of there. The Cornish are very superstitious. I know, because I'm Cornish myself. And the fishermen are more superstitious than most. I think they wouldn't have fished out of somewhere that had such a terrible reputation.
Very Cornish theme. Thank you very much, Angela. It's the story that really does strike at that mystery inside you. It's the one that niggles away. Something strange happened to the men of Port Quin, but what was it? If you think you know something at all, if you maybe once just heard a whisper, then we'd like to know what that whisper was. 0990 200 600. Let's write some history. It's what Quest is all about. More strange stories now, but from more modern times, and I give you fair warning about the only thing you can believe about the next couple of minutes is this, that the names of our two guests are Phil Healy and Rick Glanville. Welcome to the programme. Now, you're collectors of urban myths. What are they?
Well, urban myths are friend of a friend stories or shaggy dog stories. A good example of one that's going around at the moment is about a Robin Reliance, which good family car, but not noted for its speed. There's a Porsche at some lights with a yuppie driving it. He's yakking on the phone. The Robin Reliant pulls up next to him. The bloke starts revving up. The lights turn to green. But instead of the Porsche tearing away, the Reliant speeds off, leaves him, you know, for dead.
Well, that's extraordinary. What sort of things he got under the bonnet?
Well, apparently he's got a Spitfire engine in it.
Oh, really? A Spitfire engine. Great. I'd love to know whether that was true. OK, you got one as well, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, there's another one. They're always friend of a friend things. There's a friend of a friend's family were at the zoo, and soon after arriving, they saw a zookeeper with an elephant trying to train it to sit on a stool, and he was muttering that he couldn't get it to do it because all it wanted to do was sit on anything that was red except the stool. So they had a good day. Towards the end of their stay, they saw a bit of a commotion happening over the far end of the zoo, went over to investigate it, and the zookeeper was right because the elephant had sat down on their red Mini.
And I've got one as well. This is my favourite because we've been going through them all day. A guy proposes to his girlfriend after watching Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and for their wedding they asked the vicar to play this, the music you can hear. Bryan Adams, of course, the film's romantic theme tune. The organist misunderstood and they walked down the aisle to this. Robin Hood, riding through the glen. Marvellous. So what's your quest?
Well, we've written 3 books of urban myths now, and we still don't really know whether any of them are true. So we'd like either to prove some of the ones that we've said tonight or any urban myths.
If you're a star of one of these urban myths, ring in.
Marvellous. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks to Phil, thanks to Rick. So these stories may be myths, some of them almost certainly are, but some just could be true, and that's our quest. If you waltz down the aisle to Robin Hood, or if you ever cut up a Porsche in your Robin Reliant, and of course if your elephant has ever sat on a red Mini, then please call 0990 200 600, but please only if it happened to you, not if you've got a friend of a friend who it happened to, because we've all got one of those. Thank you very much indeed, gents.
Thanks.
Let's wander over here. Let's see how Emma's doing on. Have you sorted it yet?
We're getting loads of really good, wacky ideas in, definitely. And as you can see, I've got Rachel, who's my friend, the partridge in the pear tree.
Of course, of course. And you'll be able to update us at the end of whether or not you found the 2 that you're missing. Just
Absolutely,
tell
because
us
the more
again what
wacky
you're
the
missing.
idea, the better.
What are you missing again?
6 geese a-laying and 2 turtle doves. We've had things like 8 maids of milk and got those already. We need just those 2.
OK, how are you doing, Catherine?
Oh, yes, we've got loads of calls, wonderful signatures coming in, all 4 Beatles, and we've got some Michael Jackson signatures as well.
Terrific.
Lovely.
Good stuff. Sounds great. Right, time for another break. Still to come, an amazing success in our search for King Arthur's grave, so don't go away.
Multivitamins for children. Multivitamins with iron. Or with cod liver oil. With minerals. With calcium. Synatogen, because people are different, all right.
The Bosch Delta Sander puts technology at your fingertips. Easy-to-fit accessories allow you to sand and polish the smallest areas and the tightest corners. Effortlessly. Bosch. Excellence comes as standard.
Hello, I'm Doug. I started working at Hotpoint 2 weeks before they put the first man on the moon. And what I do is test washing machines. I take them to washing machine hell. And back. There's over 6 million Hotpoints around the country, and that's a lot of people doing a lot of washing. And if I thought those machines weren't up to scratch, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So I test them till I'm sure. I spend a lot of time with these machines, checking every component's as good as it can be, and that's how I see the powder. Like another bit of the machine. I seriously rate New Generation Person. I can't make people use it. I can just tell them what I think.
My mail delivery stops here. My business is over there. In Britain, the mail comes to your door. What a concept.
Pero si solo quiero unos cheques de viaje.
Esto es una oficina de correos, no un banco.
Back home, you can get travelers' checks in the post office.
Yeah, but they're all mad over there.
Do we have the most efficient postal service in Europe? No. You probably do. But we have won the World Cup more times.
Wonderful. 48 hours ago, this package left Surbiton, and I have no idea where Surbiton is.
Wherever you do business, remember, with the post office, it's sorted.
Welcome back. Update time. Just got a quick one here. Missing persons update. We've had a call from someone who says that they are Sammy. Would you please ring again if it was you? And a special word of thanks to you if you rang in to tell us where the Wembley World Cup goalposts are. Thanks, lads. You found enough goalposts to fill the entire stadium at Wembley to the brink. We've narrowed it down to 3 or 4 sets which claim to be the originals. We are, of course, investigating, and we'll let you know which post will stand up on safer ground. Now that we can say thanks if you called with Wembley memorabilia to offer to the museum, because we have got a whole load of stuff. If you have a look over here, this is the flag that flew over the stadium on the day of the '66 World Cup final. Bill O'Connor owns it, and if you want to know how he got it, well, he used to live opposite Bobby Moore. And this, the World Cup Willie mascot, it's from 1966, still lucky and still owned by Mr. R. Richards of Ruislip. And this also here is, so Malcolm Morris of Braintree in Essex tells us, is the shirt that Geoff Hurst wore in the semi-final. Jeff's been looking for that. It's a bit dirty now, so we might wash it for you before the end of the programme. I'm only joking. Now then, a new quest. We begin tonight. Earlier on in the programme, we had a story about the Beatles, but long before George Harrison first wrapped his fingers around a G chord, there was another George who was almost as popular, and he did it all with his little ukulele in his hand.
8 o'clock a girl she wakes, at 8:05 a bath she takes, at 8:10 my ladder breaks. Well, cleaning windows.
George Formby, of course. Now, here's a quick fun quest. Can you do George? If you can, then those top pop producers, Mike Stock and Matt Aitken, want you. Here's the deal. They are releasing a dance mix of George's When I'm Cleaning Windows for Christmas, and they want a whole room full of George Formbys to appear in the video. So if you think you're a passable copy of George, just call 0990 200 600, 0990 200 600, and hurry. The record comes out on December the 2nd, and the video has to be shot right now. OK, stand by for this. It's major result time on Quest, and this is the quest to find the resting place of the legendary King Arthur. Last week, 2 men, Graham Phillips and Martin Keepman, came into the studio and told us an extraordinary story. They had stumbled across a 9th century poem that detailed the exact whereabouts of the burial site of the ancient kings of Powys. One of which, they say, was Arthur himself. We followed these clues to a Dark Age hill fort in Shropshire, a place called The Birth. For Quest, Brian Blessed takes up the story.
In our hour of greatest need, when Britain shall stand leaderless at the crossroads of destiny, Arthur shall return, the once and future king. According to the legend, Arthur ruled over the great city of Camelot until he was killed in battle by his evil nephew, Mordred. Upon his death, he was taken to the island of Avalon. There he was laid to rest alongside his Celtic forefathers. Could this marshy field in the heart of the Shropshire countryside be that mythical site? Is this Avalon? Did Sir Bedivere throw the sword Excalibur into this lake? You see, at one time, all of this was covered in water, and the Birth, it wasn't a hill, it was an island.
We know the Birth was an Iron Age hill, and we also know it's occupied in the Dark Ages.
Are there other Dark Age sites in this area?
Yes, we know of at least one other Dark Age site, which is the Roman town of Wroxeter, which we know goes right into the 6th and 7th centuries AD.
Wroxeter, could that be Camelot?
People have said so. It's very difficult to say. The dating is very hazy, and we just don't know who lived there. That's the real problem. But certainly it's occupied at the right time.
We've heard the academic point of view, but where are the kings buried? The answer is in the poem. As Cinderland's sister laments the loss of her brother, the king, she looks out from the hill to a field nearby. She says, I shall mourn until I enter the field's surface. I shall mourn till I enter travail's acre. This ancient causeway leads from the Birth right up to an enclosed field, roughly an acre in size. Could this be the sacred acre referred to in the poem? Elizabeth, you've been dowsing what we think is Travail's Acre. What have you found?
Well, I found 8 bodies. I found one particular body that's obviously very important in the middle of a blind spring. And any body that's buried in the middle of a blind spring in ancient days was somebody very important.
But this could be Arthur.
I think this could be Arthur because it's somebody important because they're on a slight raised dais inside the cavity and in the centre of a blind spring. That's from my point of view, that is extremely exciting.
John, what do you think of the significance of the site in general?
Well, it's difficult for me to say as a sort of geophysicist. Obviously, we're getting interesting results, and the results look archaeological. I mean, as we'd expect from this site. I mean, I can't actually say to you that we've got a definite graveyard, which I think was one hope, but we certainly have responses that could, in certain circumstances, be interpreted as being associated with graves.
Well, it's absolutely fascinating because on the one hand, we've got Elizabeth having dowsed supposedly 7 or 8 bodies, one of which is very important. On the other hand, the machinery actually seemed to confirm that there is something down there. So best of both worlds and very exciting indeed, very enthralling.
And the poem tells us it's the burial site of the kings of Powys, and this scientific evidence now seems to suggest it could very well be just that. And if that's right, the poem also, remember, tells us that one of these kings that's buried here is King Arthur himself. And if it's right about everything else, I'm pretty sure this is the nearest thing you're ever going to get to real historical evidence that we've found King Arthur himself.
So, Graham and Martin's quest comes to a successful conclusion with the help of the equipment we found for them last week. They believe they have found Arthur's grave, but we, of course, need to know more. Here to tell us exactly what those fascinating printouts indicate is Mike Stokes, who's an archaeologist from the museum in Shrewsbury. Welcome to the programme.
Hello,
have a look at a graph here, which was one of the things that came out of the printout. What does it tell us? What
it's showing us on the left-hand side here, it's a sort of contour survey underground, as it were. It's the simple way of describing it. And this was produced by the magnetometer that was mentioned a moment ago. You'll notice a very tall column, what we might call a spike. That doesn't mean a real object, but a tall result.
That's the one on the left-hand side.
Letter A. That actually indicates a deposit with a large chunk of iron or something of the sort sitting actually in a pit. And if we look at the next graph, which should come up, I think, in a second.
That's not going to be... there it is. That's a close-up of that spike.
That's right, looking, as it were, in a plan, flat down on top of it.
And you can see a sort of a crescent around it, can't you?
That's it. You've got a grey crescent shading around the outside, a white patch in the centre with a black spot.
That's not going to be an old pipe, is it, or something like that?
No. If you had a pipe, that would actually show up as a line running right the way across the site.
But that doesn't look like it could be a sword or a shield.
It's a lump of something.
Right.
It could be a shield boss, it could be a... Well,
because it's coming up as a lump, it's because it's probably corroded.
That's right, it will be, yes. On that side, there'll be a fair amount of corrosion on it, whatever it is.
Now,
archaeologists... sitting in a ditch, which is the interesting thing about it.
Archaeologists don't very often get excited. Are you excited?
Oh, we do get excited, but only when we know what we're looking at. Right. At the moment, we don't know exactly what we're looking at, but we do know now that there's something there. That's the most exciting thing. We've always known, as Graham and Martin have said, that this site was important to the kings and princes of Powys. Now we've got something solid to go on.
Terrific. That's great. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. It's a marvellous story. Now, we've spoken to English Heritage, and they told us that they will be happy to work with Quest as we seek to establish exactly what's down there, and we'll be reporting back to you week by week. Meanwhile, as I say, this site is private and scheduled. It's a scheduled monument, so please, let's all stand back, leave the exploration to the experts. Thank you very much indeed for that. Let's have a chat with Emma and see how she's done with her 12 days of Christmas. How did you do?
Oh, I'm doing very well here. So far, for the 2 turtle doves, Irene and Paul Wilson from Valley in North Wales think that after 15 years of marriage and 2 children, they would make the perfect turtle doves. They're a loving couple. And 6 geese a laying we might have got as well. Mrs. Tiller from Margate in Kent knows 2 mothers who are Mrs. Goslings, and they've got 3 little goslings each.
How have you done?
I've been inundated. Steve Watson from Ipswich, he's got Elvis Presley's signature on a photograph, and we've got lots of people with signed photographs and real signatures on them.
Excellent. All could be worth a little bit of money.
A fortune.
Marvellous. That's New Beatles Quest here. Richard Porter, who conducts walking tours in London, would like to know where the venue for the first Beatles gig in London was. He thinks it was called the Blue Gardenia. Rock memorabilia, huge response, including a call from Jacqueline Davison from Newcastle upon Tyne. She has a collection of rock memorabilia herself. Rolling Stone ticket from '66. We've just heard from John Beardmore in West Yorkshire, who claims to own the Robin Reliant in question with a Spitfire engine. Yeah, I'm sure, but we'll be checking that up. Next week, don't forget that we are on at 6:30. It's an earlier time, so don't miss the beginning of the programme. And no time for the Diana interview. What a shame. See you next week. Bye-bye.